Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Neil McKenzie, Director of Marketing here at Universal, and welcome to the Learning Center. For those of you at home, hello. We have a number of things. We've had a number of events this week. We have a number today and tomorrow as well here in our Learning Center. Most of them are virtual. Been fortunate enough to have this one be in person with a small, dispersed audience that is socially distancing. So thank you for joining us and thanks for coming in. If you've not been to Universal before, welcome. The building has a lot to see. We have 115,000 square feet of space, 3 floors of product, including floor 3 has our new introductions, including Coastal Living Outdoor and a work from home opportunity and offering. And those are 2 things that we think are going to trend pretty well here of late. We also have a new introduction called Modern Farmhouse. On floor 2, you'll see some things from Coastal Living, Miranda Kerr, but if you'd like to see any of it, just check in at the front desk and they'll kind of give you a little run of where to go and you can tour appropriately. And if you need a drink, for those of at home, you can go to your fridge, but for those here, you can go to the cafe and grab anything you'd like. So today we're honored to have Rachel Gurley here from New York. Rachel has a history of marketing, PR, branding, and online e-commerce, and she's assembled a great panel today that is probably going to touch on a subject that is near and dear to a lot of our hearts of late in terms of all the things that are probably coming to your doorstep without ever leaving your home. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the panel, but thank you all for being here and taking the time to spend with us.
Thank you so much, Neil. And thank you to Universal and the High Point Market Authority and Neil and Mary Lee specifically for putting all this together, because I know that these are unprecedented times and they have gone above and beyond to make sure that we are not just reflecting on 2020, but really planning for the future and coming together as an industry and thinking through how can we do business differently and better, and how can the product lead that. So we are so grateful to be here in the Learning Center. And I know that I needed this because more personally, I'm thinking through what are my next steps. And these are 3 women that I have admired for so many years from afar and up close. And I am just so excited to learn from you all. So I'm going to jump in and briefly introduce them, and then we'll get into questions. So Colleen is sitting close to me. Colleen Waguespack has over 20 years experience in interior design. She has lived in Washington, D.C. and focused on corporate headquarters, national nonprofits, and now in Baton Rouge does mainly private residences. But currently, while leading her own eponymous shop out of Baton Rouge, she also started 5 years ago Fig and Dove, which is a beautiful line that started Christmas decor line and has since expanded. It's direct to consumer online, carries products like Fortuny fabric stockings, ornaments that are done with local artist collaborations, and in-house designed finishing touches for any homes, from tassels to wreath sashes. So as you think about decorating for Christmas, definitely check it out. Whitney Moore, next to her, is the president of Meadow Blue, formerly known as Candelabra. She's based in Charleston, South Carolina, and her store has been nominated 3 separate times for Arts Awards. She's won twice. Once in 2007 as the best lighting store in the country, and then again in 2018 for the best home accent store and site in the country. While the storefront is the life of the brand, her website, Meadow Blue, has drawn international clients and vendors, and she expands her reach as she sells over 200 brands, many sourced right here in High Point. And lastly, Emily Taylor Young is the founder of Brass and Burl, a home furnishings curated marketplace that she founded several years ago. It's based out of New York City. She's a graduate of the Parsons School of Design and really differentiates her site through excellent customer service, high-end furnishings. So many of the things I think you'll all find familiar from our walk around High Point, but with really fresh light in how she curates them together. So that is our panel, and we will jump right in, starting because I know we have some interior designers in the audience, with you, Colleen, because so many more Americans are staying home. They're thinking about their houses. There's been a huge surge. We've seen record earnings out of companies like Wayfair, but they're also kind of uncomfortable with doing a full renovation and having all these people in their home. So what are some creative ways interior designers can work with their clients through digital or hybrid channels? And what advice do you have for interior designers who are just starting out in this like strange digital environment?
Okay, well, twofold. Can everybody hear me? Is this working? So the way that we did client presentations in the past is obviously in person, and we had cut sheets in our fabrics, and we really like to unfold the presentation with a floor plan and visuals. And during COVID, we have been extremely busy, and all of a sudden our clients were home, and projects like indoor outdoor kitchens and family spaces that they had put off, they looked to it right now and said, this is the time we actually need those spaces. And so even though everybody was home, they all wanted work to be done. So we really took the same format and just moved it into PowerPoint presentations and really just started, screenshotting all the different images, putting the fabrics together, doing really good photography and putting together a beautiful presentation that we would email them and then jump on a Zoom call and really review the presentation. People were really comfortable with that. Then we went the next step and really started beefing up all of our 3D renderings and our three-dimensional presentations. And that was a very effective tool that we'll continue to use from here on out. And it's something we always wanted to do more of, didn't take the time to do. And so I feel like COVID sort of pushed us in that direction, and that was great. So again, speaking to people who are younger in their career or newer at this and who are looking to actually find a place in an established firm, having those skills and bringing those to the table are invaluable, because it's something that, again, if you've been working for a long time, we didn't start out doing that. We want to do more of that. We might not have been doing as much of it as we would have liked, but COVID sort of pushed us there, and it's where we needed to be anyway.
Everything is going more digital. It's a comfort level thing. Of course, we were kind of pushed into it with the pandemic, but it's also affected some of the back end and the pipeline and all of that. And I was wondering if Whitney, as someone that sells a lot to the trade, what have you seen change around what designers are asking for, what customer expectations are? How do you cater to your customer differently?
Hear me? Actually, I would say the hardest part in the beginning was that the unsurety of people's jobs and things going on with what the pandemic was going to do, that people weren't really out there and spending. Lots of people were having to go home. Some were choosing to go on unemployment. As things got to go along, as people were sitting at home and they weren't going on vacations and spending money that way, they decided that they wanted to spend money on their home. If they're sitting in there, they wanted to beautify it. So actually business started kicking up. And then at that point, we had to look at our companies who had then had so many people that had been laid off that now have to come back to work. How many people can come back to work? What are the new regulations? So you were dealing with a lot of logistical problems with companies and stock. And so all of a sudden we got this boost in business after a little lag time. And then there was no one there to get it to the customers, to ship it to the customers. And so it did create a lot of problems at that time. I think over the last couple months, more and more people have started to come back. They're restocking. Everything is starting to do better. I do think in the beginning, designers were frustrated because their clients were frustrated because they were used to the needing it in 4 weeks, and now it's going to be 12 weeks. And then also containers not coming in and things like that, where we have to say it was 4 weeks. Now it's 8. Oh, wait, now it's, a lot of that. But as time went on, I think everybody started to realize that this was a pandemic. There were other bigger concerns out there, and they got more patient. And so I think the clients got more patient, the designers got more patient. And we're now back to a point where I think we're starting to function normally again, which is great considering where it was in the beginning.
That's incredible. And I loved what Colleen said before we started, that if anyone knew how hard this job was, they probably wouldn't start. Because you look at sales and you're like, wow, what an awesome quarter for Wayfair. Kudos to them. And then you realize they worked through pipeline disruptions and inventory challenges. So many things that get in the way. And I wanted to ask Emily, you were in corporate retail, then you switched to entrepreneurship. Many of the people in our audience today are in one career and thinking about adding this on or doing a second side hustle on this. And there were already a lot of furniture marketplaces online, but you found a way to differentiate Brass and Burl. What were the hurdles that you kind of had to overcome as you were starting to make sure that you stood out?
Sure. So there were definitely already a lot of home furnishing sites. However, I knew that I had to just find a niche straight out of the gate. I wasn't going to be Wayfair or Amazon. You have to find what you want to be. You can't be everything to everyone. So I was going after curated, high-end furniture brands and products. And basically, I needed the style and the quality to reflect, justify the price tag. I never wanted a customer to feel like they didn't get what they were paying for. And so I really looked to traditional retailers, which was my background. I was at Bloomingdale's, and I looked to what they did and their core values and just applied it to an online boutique. It's really not all that different from traditional retail. The most important thing is product quality and customer service. And I just kept that in mind when I launched my site. And those values have kept us through all of the ups and downs of COVID, because customer service, for example, all you're doing now is explaining to customers that it's going to be 12 weeks instead of 4. And Wayfair may do it differently. I'm not sure if you can get someone on the phone all the time, but with a company like mine and yours, I'm sure you talk to your customers. And that customer service is what you need in order to keep them with you and to ride this crazy up and down wave.
I love what you said, that it's really led by the product. And I think that that's so true. And bouncing back to you, Colleen, in interior design, it's all about finding the right product for the right place. And your brand started because you couldn't find the right product for the places you need to fill. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, the origin, and why you decided to launch online instead of as a storefront?
Well, sure. We started Big and Dove 5 years ago, but I had been an interior designer for 20 years and never did seasonal decorating or holiday decorating for clients. And I think it was really because there was a lack of product out there that I felt was of the same quality of the homes that we were decorating. And so nothing, Christmas stockings weren't lined and interlined. Christmas tree skirts weren't large enough to fill the space underneath the tree. We couldn't find anything to put at the top of a tree. And I think 5 or 6 years ago, if you look back at what people were doing, they had sort of given up. They were putting burlap at the bottom of their trees. And so finally, it really hit me that that there was a void in the marketplace and that we could really fill it. And we were doing a client's home, or we're shooting a client's home for a magazine. And so we custom made the beautiful Fortuny Christmas tree skirts and then really worked at the stockings. And then it led me to take out all the Pottery Barn stockings and whatnot and really look at the proportions and the shapes and say, nobody's really done this well. And so at that point, we really just leapt in and started Fig and Dove, thinking it would just be something interior designers were gravitated toward. It would be a website. I did think e-commerce was going to be very easy. Everybody said, how are you going to do it? Run 2 businesses? I was like, oh, it's just going to be like a drapery workroom. Someone's going to put in an order for stockings and we're going to get the fabric. And of course, it's going to take 12 to 16 weeks. Never occurred to us that it was a seasonal company and that the Fortuny would all have to be sitting in stock. So the first year we came out with really beautiful prototypes and product, and all the magazines picked it up. And all of a sudden the stores were calling and saying, what is your wholesale pricing? And I would say, well, what is wholesale pricing? I mean, I had absolutely no idea. But then I knew we actually had found a void in the market. So went through a very quick business entrepreneurship program and then came back a year later with the wholesale line, and a lot bigger and better. And every year since have really just taken the next step. So for 3 years, Fig and Dove really stayed a Christmas line. And then we moved into more special occasions and gifting year 4 and 5.
I love that answer. And I have so many of your things in my own home, and I really do feel like they're heirlooms. And to Emily's point about quality, like you have to be known for something, and that's a really awesome thing to be known for. There's a lot of people who are known for price.
Well, and one thing I want to say is our items are special. And that was the whole idea, is that they should look good in a modern home as well as a traditional home. And when something's really beautifully made and executed, it looks good in both. A lot of the things that we brought to the market were actually products we designed with artisans that we had been working with for years on the interior design side. So if Michael Savoya, who's in Providence, Rhode Island, had been embroidering the leading edge of drapes for us, we had him embroider the cuff of a stocking. Fortuny, especially because we're in the South, has always been a known collected fabric. That was an easy one for us. We also went with Coleman Taylor Textiles out of Montgomery that did, a beautiful hand printed textile. And so we started out with artisans that were already known for their own quality of craftsmanship and really brought them into their Christmas collection. And since then, we continue to do the same thing. So sometimes it's our idea that we bring to the market, and then sometimes it's working with artisans to create really items you would want to take out year to year, passed down from generation to generation.
And one thing I just want to pull out from that response is that collaborations are a great way to get word out about your brand. if you are, Colleen did a collaboration, correct me if I'm wrong, with Logan Ledford
Mhm.
on hand painted Christmas ornaments. Logan is a Louisiana-based business as well, and she has a following. So together, both their followings are talking about the same product. That's instant PR for you, or just reaching a new audience, which is awesome. And as we think about changing audiences, Whitney, there's so many people in our industry who are taking this downtime to really consider, like, what is my calling? Should I go into entrepreneurship? Should I do e-commerce? Should I open a shop? Real estate is really inexpensive right now on the commercial side. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin of Candelabra and how you decided to go store first and then online? What advice you would have to someone who was going on that same path today? Would you still go the same order?
Well, way back in the day, there wasn't that I knew of even a lighting store or home furnishing store online when I first started. And back in 2002, when I opened Candelabra, lighting had become a passion of mine. I actually had gone to school for fashion. So sometimes your life just leads you in a different direction. But I decided I was getting married and moving to Charleston. And so I decided to open a lighting showroom. And it took off because there wasn't one there in that area. And I ended up in doing contractor lighting. And it wasn't necessarily planned. I thought I was going to do a little more of an interior design thing, but sometimes you try to plan and sometimes things lead you in a different way. And my whole path over the last 20 years has been led to a very different path than I thought that it was going to be. So at the time there was no online, but a little thing with the economy happened in 2008, similar to kind of what we're feeling right now, where everything went down. People stopped building. They weren't buying homes. Therefore, there was no lighting to go into new homes. And I took that time to sit back and go, well, what am I going to do? I can sit here and not have any business and close the doors, or I can figure out what other avenues there are. So I started researching. I had actually been on, my father was telling me a story about being on a plane with a man who sold fans online. And so I started looking at that in terms of lighting and pursued it more and found a company and started a small website that did probably nothing the first year, but just get people's attention. And then learned about Google and search engines and things like that. And was very lucky that I had just started it early, and that became the online company. And then over time, I realized that a lot of my lighting companies also had home furnishings and other things to offer, and furniture and accessories. So I expanded it into that. And then that created a second store that was a furniture store of mine. And together, those two stores made everything that was on the website.
So you said you could have never imagined like the path that it would take when you started in contract lighting. What advice do you have for people that are just starting out? It seems hard to plan the big picture. What would you tell them to do?
I will tell you that the irony of it was I thought that I was opening an online store and my life is going to become easier. The physicality of a store is so hard, and you have to order it if you're going to sell it, and it has to be there, and you have to know about that, and you have to move it and merchandise it. And I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to be like I Dream a Genie. I'm just going to throw everything up there and do the same thing that I did. And what I found, it was so much harder. And I saw so many people thinking they could push that easy button that wanted to do it. And I watched people come and go who were trying to do what I did. And I think the reason that happened is because it was a 24/7 job to go online. You weren't just dealing with a competitor that was down the street and watching them. You now had competitors all around you at any moment, and new ones every day, and how to get yourself distinguished. You can't be complacent. You always have to be on your aim game. You always have to find something new. Google is always going to challenge you and change their rules. Everything in the industry is going to lead you to zig and zag. And just when you start to feel like you're comfortable and you've got something going, you've got to shift. And it's a lot different than when you just have a brick and mortar store. There are times with that store where you do feel like you're comfortable, you can relax now after 5 years. It's not going to happen that way in the online world. You're going to constantly have to keep evolving and changing.
Well, you have to drive people to your website. I mean, if you're a physical store, people can walk by. But the crazy thing about a website is you can spend all this time and attention on it, but it's actually nowhere. unless you have a reason to drive people to get on your website. So then you have to create content and send out emails and be on Instagram. And that's constant because you have to keep reminding people about a store that actually they can't see.
Right, right. Very true. And as interior designers, and if you're trying to start small lines or whatever, I can say if you're trying to do something right now, because it's going to take a long time. When I rebranded, it took me 1.5 years to launch my website. And that was after already being through this for 10 years with my other one. It's going to take time to do it right if you're really wanting to be successful with that. You can't do it overnight. But one thing that you can do to help yourselves out now, whether you have stores or needing to address clients, is to use Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, constantly continue to put things on there that you like to sell or do and get yourself out there. And that's something where you can reach a lot of people through that, and reach out to other people in your industry and say, hey, like you were talking about with collaboration, let's put something together and see if we can, your people and my people, we can get more people, you know, to like us, and just build it that way. It's a much faster way to start getting out there while you're trying to create a website, if that's what you're choosing to do.
Absolutely. And tagging everyone, even while you're here, when you take photos in showrooms, tag the brand whose showroom you're in. Maybe they'll rebrand and people will follow you to see your high point experience. If you're an interior designer who's big into tag following to rebrand you, or use products from Candelabra or Brass and Pearl. Now, Emily, you started the store, correct me if I'm wrong, you started the store and the website at the same time. So tell us we've heard the website's really hard, the store is really hard. How do you allocate your time? What are the pros and cons to each model? Do you need them both at all times?
Sure. So I started them at the same time, but I viewed it as the website was number one. They were my number one drawer. At my time at Bloomingdale's, all the stores, they were ranked best stores. Website is number one. The store was important to me, but it served as a way to open doors with manufacturers, and it served as a way to ease the mind of some industry leaders who weren't so comfortable with e-commerce. They want you to have a store. At least they did when I started. Perhaps a few years post that, maybe they're more comfortable with e-commerce. But I really wanted to have the store so that I could invest in my manufacturers, buy product from them, show them that I had skin in the game. But the website was so important. I wanted it to be functional. I wanted usability. I knew that I needed to invest in that. So I'd say definitely website was more time and energy. My new store that's opening out in East Hampton, I'm super excited about, and it's interesting, since COVID, a lot of people have left the city and are living in the suburbs more permanently. So some people think, brick and mortar is dead, but I view this as an opportunity time for brick and mortar as well. So it's interesting.
And I'll interject, I don't think brick and mortar is dead. I think people are starting to realize, and just from having a website, people are starting to realize, don't give up on brick and mortar. They're starting to realize they want to go see it, touch it, feel it. If I get one more person who says it's not the color I thought it was, well, what was your computer screen monitor giving you? People are starting to realize that whole experience is going to become novelty again. You mean I walk in a store and I get to see it and pick it out myself, and I don't just have to see it on a screen? It will come back. I truly believe it's not gone. It will come back. And to have both in conjunction is the best of both worlds, because when one dips, the other one is there for you.
One of the things that I love most about e-commerce is that you can try a lot, you can experiment, and you fail fast, and sometimes you fail hard, but you can also fail with very little skin in the game on certain products. We've all failed, especially in the early days of starting our companies, at one thing or another. What are some things that you've had to learn the hard way? And this is kind of for all three of you. What have you learned the hard way that you can save the rest of us from also experiencing?
What have I not learned the hard way? And I think that, one, do not put all your eggs in one basket.
That was mine.
Got it.
That was.
But it is very true. And actually a good example would be when we launched Meadow Blue, and it actually broke. Now, we were a company that was solid for 10 years. You would think it would just continue to run, but we had some major glitches, and we went down for a few months, and it was very scary as a company who's always run consistently. So you have to be prepared for those surprises, for sure. And when the company is, is only selling, we were still selling, we were making it, I was very thankful, but we were selling one brand, and it was one particular thing in one brand. And I said, then this is going to get saturated and knocked off, and it's going to go away. And so I kept telling my advertising companies that advertise for me, this is great, I'm glad you're happy at the producing you're doing, but everything is going to this one vendor, and that means when this goes down, I go down with it. I need you to work on finding all of the other avenues, so when this does start to go down, we're still going up. And so you definitely want to always be looking for the next greatest thing. Know your target market, but don't be afraid to evolve that target market in the way that you see it's going to go.
That's a fantastic response. Colleen or Emily, does something come to mind that you had to learn the hard way?
Yes, definitely invest as much time in research as you can. You know, you're probably eager to start your site and you're overwhelmed by all the decisions you have to make, and I feel like you might be seduced into making a quick decision on a developer or a marketing team. But you really need to do your research and give that a lot of time. Interview as many people as you can, and then go with what feels right. And then don't be scared to cut ties if it's not working out. Don't be afraid to admit defeat. Sometimes you gotta fire them and find someone else, and there is always someone else. This is a huge industry with a lot of players and experts, and you need to just, trust your gut. And I had to go through numerous developers and numerous marketing teams before I found people that I felt like I could actually make money off of. And so it's just important. I'd say that.
Yeah, I actually, both of their sentiments are what I echo, because our biggest, problem that we've come into is putting all of our eggs into one basket, and that's with manufacturing. And it kind of goes to both of them, because Emily says investing time and finding the right people. And sometimes when you're starting out and financially you're very stretched, you skip important parts, and you skip important steps because you literally can't afford it. And so for us, definitely our biggest pitfalls have been in manufacturing. And it's like, no, did we actually go tour the factory? No, but we met the owner in Houston at a conference, and she was so lovely, and we had dinner with her and we all hit it off. But actually, turns out we're not Theory and Under Armour. And even though she took all of our money, she got very busy and produced nothing for us, and then told us she was going bankrupt. So those types of things happen. And so we send an employee up the last minute to go actually show up at the manufacturing shop to see what in the world was going on. And she was like, oh my gosh, it looks nothing like they described it to us. And we would have never signed on or given this kind of money to this woman if we'd realized what her workroom really looked like and what the quality was. So what they had described to us and all their investments in technology and their management system, and it was all very sophisticated online, and their PowerPoint was just beautiful. But really, if we'd actually shown up at the factory, we would have never hired them. And, you look back and you say, what did we do wrong? We really couldn't afford to do it at the time. You can't afford not to. So we had all these big accounts, and our manufacturing sort of fell through. And if you look at what you invested in getting those accounts, that was definitely our worst moment by a landslide. But that whole season, because that was a Christmas season for us, I kept thinking, like, what are the lessons learned? Like, what are the lessons learned? Like, we're going to make it, but what is the lesson learned? And finally it was, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So it doesn't matter how great your manufacturer is, how great your relationship is. You can't control natural disasters, and they're in every part of the country. You can't control a virus. You can't control somebody having a family member that gets very sick and just says, I'm so sorry, but my husband's sick and I'm shutting down. So even if you have a manufacturer that you're working with and it's just such a great relationship and it seems so turnkey, keep the other people happy too. Like, we always have a backup and a backup for the backup. And we're always feeding small bits of work to other people to keep them happy, so that if our big person falls through, our small people will pitch in.
That's a great takeaway. And I think all the eggs in one basket speaks to the importance of due diligence. You cannot vet enough your marketing team, your manufacturing partners, who you bring in as a vendor, even your best sellers, to Whitney's point. Like, you need to diversify your revenue streams. And it can be hard to keep all those balls in the air at once. And so I wanted to do a section that I call rapid fire, where it's just a topic of managing an e-commerce and kind of how you guys manage keeping that ball in the air. So what's your hot tip that comes to mind when I say these categories? And the first one is on presentation. how to present your brand and products?
I would say know who you are and be confident in who you know you are, and keep it very consistent in that, knowing that things around you may change and that you may need to evolve. But make sure that you believe in yourself and what brought you to be so passionate about it in the first place.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we use Instagram to show lifestyle photography when you're trying to sell online, actually being the expert. So we are the interior designers. We show it in a curated environment, and we actually teach people how to use the products, because buying online can be very cold unless you actually really show people how to use it effectively.
When you say presentation, for me, I think have you present your product online. So, I mean, just vendor imagery and imagery that you take is just so important. Although, especially with a high-end product base, if you're just selling a shirt, you know, you can have 1 or 2 pictures. But I'm selling $7,000 buffets. You need the more, the better. So, you just invest in the imagery, invest in working with your manufacturers to get that imagery. If a customer calls and they want to see the inside of the cabinet and you need to send someone to a showroom and take a picture, you know, the more the better in presentation.
Absolutely. Imagery is everything online.
And scale. I mean, how many people have ordered something online and it's embarrassing because you're like, wait, this is what I do for a living. How could I have not realized this lamp was so big? So scale is everything. And that's why the lifestyle photography is so key.
It also sometimes the key is getting in front of a customer who doesn't realize they're in a need state. It's one thing to just buy SEO words, and when someone searches 42-inch tall alabaster floor lamp, you know, there you are in Google PLA listings. It's a whole other to show a Chesterfield where that's leaning over and a little boy is reading the newspaper and say, oh, I don't really have a reading nook for my son. I need an alabaster floor lamp. So it's a little bit of inception. If you can create your own demand, lifestyle imagery is one way to do that. Okay, direct to consumer, wholesale, or marketplace.
It's back to all your eggs in one basket. You got to do them all. I mean, you can't close the door on one because the culture of buying changes, the climate changes. I'm back to keep a little bit going in all of them. One will go up, the next will go down, but this is going to come back and you'll be glad you still kept the other one.
What about our 2 marketplaces?
The girl who doesn't have a shop, by the way, says this.
There were times, and the pandemic was good. The stores had to close. They had to shut down. I did have Caitlin, who's sitting right here. I'm going to call her out. She is my manager of stores. She did send out Instagram pictures and Facebook and contacted people of the imagery of the stuff we had in the store. And she would then take it and sell it to them over the phone and literally sit it outside and let them pick it up. So even though we were closed, but it still obviously couldn't account for the amount of volume that you would normally get from someone walking in the door. And then that's when the website took over. On the other hand, when my website was having technical issues with Google decided they didn't like me that week. And that does happen a lot. They will change their mind a lot, and you have to have people watching that. I was very thankful to have those stores in there and selling that while that wasn't working as well. So the more you can diversify and the more you can find different avenues, I always believe in going with both.
I would echo everything they're saying, and also add that if you're in just one, you may think the grass is greener on the other side. Sometimes I think about wholesale and I say, hey, there's fewer steps from point A to to point B or whatever, but I'm sure they look at having a marketplace as having more opportunity as well. So, I think like everyone's saying, having a little bit in every arena is probably a good idea, but you also don't want to lose your identity and try to do all of them if it's not for you. So think about, where you think you can really succeed.
It really depends on what factors you want to control. So if the delivery experience is the most important to you, maybe going marketplace and having things drop ship from Universal directly to the customer is something you would want to intervene in the middle of so that you can be involved in that last mile. Or if it's important to you to have your product in only the boutiques that you can select. And you want to be managing your wholesale and not just listing on Fair. So if you don't know Fair, you should definitely look at that if you're considering coming out with a product. But it's so, you can't fight every battle in the beginning, and it's just about figuring out what your thing is and doing the minimum viable product of that to see if there is appetite for it in the marketplace before you invest too much time and money, of course. Next category, driving traffic to your site and capturing the customer's attention. Any tips?
I would say you need people. I love design. I'm very creative. I can handle numbers. There's a lot of things that I can do. There's a lot of things I can't do. I don't speak Google. The back end of my website for me would be like reading French, and I don't speak French. You have to trust in your people. You have to find those people that are trustworthy and count on them. You have to find outside agencies. You can't bring them all in-house. Look at their reputations, research it, ask them good questions. Don't be afraid to test them or push them, and don't be afraid to tell them what it is you're really wanting to get out there. But you need those people to do that, to find you, because it's constantly changing and evolving. And there is no way that I could predict that Google's going to change their algorithm next week. And now all of a sudden something that was driving business is now going to take us off the map. So you need people and advisors. If you're going to go online and you want to stay online, because you can be doing really great for 2 months and think that you've made it big, and you can fall off.
The people that I think do best in e-commerce are ones that realize that you need experts in certain areas. Like in Facebook ads, the price is double now because the election ads are buying up a lot of the views. You wouldn't necessarily know that if you were an interior designer that entered into the shop category. So I'm curious to hear what some of the other tips are, Colleen or from Emily, and how do you actually get customers to come to your site?
I would echo the importance of finding someone who's an expert in Google marketing, and it's not just someone, there's tons of agencies and that's all they specialize in, but also reviews. So some people choose to have reviews, some people choose not to have reviews, and there's reasons for both, because of course the angry customer is who leaves a review most of the time. But for me, we decided to go with allowing reviews on Google, on Better Business Bureau, on Consumer Affairs, all of those sites. And I consider my business a small business servicing a large audience, and it has really benefited my business having the reviews.
So that's another way to get traffic to your site. People call and they say, we read about your review and that's what brought me here. So I would say, yeah, Google marketing, and then decide your strategy on reviews.
And I would definitely agree with her on that, because I didn't want to do the review. I don't want to review. I know what's going to happen.
Right.
I've experienced Yelp. Yelp hates me. I don't know what I did to them. But you just you really do have to have those reviews, and you'll be surprised if you really have your heart and soul in it and you have good people trying to create and do good things and good customer service, how many people are willing to really leave you that good review. And don't be afraid of the bad reviews. People out there understand. They know when someone's being a little
Crazy.
off or had a bad day. I mean, you can see that in something. So don't be afraid of the bad ones. You don't want all good ones. That doesn't look real. That doesn't look realistic. So you've got to kind of welcome them and grow through them. And sometimes they're just bad to that one person, but it means something good to the other. Oh, they didn't like the finish because it was darker. I thought it was lighter. I'm going to get it. That kind of thing. So don't be afraid of reviews.
Well, I'll say you do want to increase volume of sales. I mean, that's obviously the way to get to profitability. And we're living in the world of Instagram, and we found a lot of success in Instagram. And sometimes you look at somebody and you say, well, wait, how do they have 120,000 followers and I only have, 5,000 followers? And you're so obsessed with getting all these numbers of volume of followers. But at the end of the day, you just need the right followers. And if you have 3,000 followers, but they're actually 3,000 repeat customers, you're going to be successful. And so that leads to working with social influencers and partnering with the right people in collaborations or whatnot, because really you're looking for more of that audience that likes your look and your product is going to spread the word. So word of mouth is really, and customers that are happy and coming back is the best way to grow your brand. So my advice is to really just keep the customers that you already have happy and keep servicing them and keep interacting with them and finding out what they liked, why they liked it, and therefore give them more of that, and you'll have a successful business.
So we already touched on this a bit with reviews, but I want to talk about conversion. And in my experience, reviews are a huge driver of conversion. The more reviews there are, just like the more images there are, the more likely someone will transact on the product. But we've all clicked on a lot of products we haven't bought. We've been to a lot of websites we haven't transacted. How do you actually get the customer to pull that trigger?
You definitely need to make sure that you're organized, that you're providing all the information right there that they may need. Yes, they might have to call in for something specific, but you want different images and you want them in different lighting shots and at different angles. And the lifestyles are amazing. Those are the best ones to do. And in fact, my most successful vendors are the ones who caught on to that early and started doing the lifestyles, because companies like mine can't have a studio and bring in everything that we have and create our own lifestyle shots. We don't have that time. So the fact that they've done that, that has grown it a lot. And you just definitely want to make sure, if you know a shipping time frame, make sure you have it on there. If you're going to have free shipping for it, let them know right there. If it's not and there's a charge, let them know. If you think that they should make it white glove, tell them. Give them all the information that you can on that page with that product. And then more than likely, they're going to want to convert. You also need to make sure and always search your competition online. Even though there is IMAP policies and things that are supposed to be the same, there's always going to be the cheaters out there.
Are you guys familiar with what IMAP is? It's the minimum advertised price on many products is set by the manufacturer. So the person that makes this podium says this is a $1,000 podium. You cannot sell it for $9.99, and that's to make it a fair marketplace that competes on customer service and delivery experience.
Right. And sometimes people are allowed to have sales and something's on sale, but know that, because the last thing you want to do is just willy-nilly say, I think this is worth $800 and everybody else has it for $750. And someone has clicked on yours and you've now paid for them to click and go, and they back out because it's different. So you do want to make sure that you're watching your competition as well. And then you want to make sure that you have a smooth and easy checkout process, because I don't know how many guys, I've abandoned a million things, usually around 11 o'clock at night, where I'm like, ooh, I love that t-shirt. It looks so cute. I'll get two. And I put them in there and it gets hairy in the checkout. And I go, I don't really need them. And I let go of the cart. So you want a very smooth checkout process.
The checkout flow is actually the area of sites where you will lose the most customers. If there was any friction, it's just like at the cash wrap. If you can get the customer to put the Gap t-shirt on the cash wrap, they're gonna buy it. When they add it to the cart, that's no guarantee, because online, with all of the fields that you have to enter, you just will lose a lot of customers. So that's really great insight. Does anyone else have something that comes to mind on conversion?
Yes, whenever a customer reaches out to you, if you're not able to deal with it immediately, as soon as possible, we have found that anytime a customer calls, emails, or uses like a chat app, if you're gonna add a function so they can chat with you live, it converts like 2 to 3 times as more than if they haven't reached out. So, or they put it in their cart and they just abandoned it. It really, you have such an opportunity if a customer is engaged with you to sell them more, to upsell them on a more expensive item, or they're choosing between two, and it's just so important to respond as quickly as possible, to if they're interested in an item and it's out of stock, to send them 3 suggestions for something else. If they like extend that olive branch out, you know, you need to take it and get back to them.
And I'm going to add one more quick thing in terms of abandoned carts. This is a feature if you're going to have a website that you really want to have control of and be alerted of your abandoned carts. These are people not reaching out to you. These are people for some reason put it in the cart and left and never came back. And sometimes you can reach out to them and find out why. Oh, well, once I got it in there, I thought maybe it is a little too big. Well, what are your measurements? Tell me your rooms. Send me your picture. You get the sale back. So you never know what the reason is why it's sitting there. It's always good to touch base with them. And they tend to really like that because they feel like you're caring about them.
Commerce, but with such a personal touch. Just because you don't have a store doesn't mean you're not going to be dealing with it.
That's what I was going to say. It is still just customer service, and the customers really want to feel like they know you. So the truth is they're not dying to buy from somebody who has a call center in India right now. They actually want to know that it's young Southern women with children all working together answering customer service. So we started out trying to be so professional and so polished, and we didn't have a lot of personality in our responses. And we've really changed that to more of like, you can get to know us and you feel like, oh, I know who Virginia is, who's helping fill my order, who actually personally packed that for me. So we've gotten less formal and more personable, even in our customer service responses with basic questions.
That's such a good response because even walking around the market, I've seen so much storytelling. People actually signing their workmanship on the tag of a sofa, or the story of, when the company started. At market, they're great at that. And it often doesn't come through online.
On the website, right?
For sure. Giving a brand experience online is a very different challenge than building a store where someone can walk in and say, I get it.
Well, our Instagram used to be a lot colder, like less personable pictures of us. And we had a wonderful girl working with us, but she just really was pretty buttoned up and tight. And for our stories, she wanted our stories to be very formal. And now the girl who's doing our office is looser. She's more casual. She's more fun. And even though our brand is pretty polished and formal and pulled together, our stories aren't. So maybe our live feed has stayed like that, but our stories have gotten more fun and engaging and just more casual. And I think that has actually been a really successful thing that we've been doing.
So you establish this customer base, people get to know you, they love you, they're repeat customers. How do you scale? How do you get bigger?
A lot of hard work, a lot of commitment, a lot of being willing to change, a lot of being willing to know when you are wrong, a lot of listening to others, hiring the right people, and don't ever think that you're going to know everything, because you're not.
Don't ever pull back if you're doing well. Don't you need to be involved in every single thing. You can't do everything yourself, but I feel like some people might start a business, it might be taking off, and then they can say, oh, I don't need to be involved in shipping. I don't need to be involved in marketing. But if you're a business owner, you need to know all of it, and so that you can, solve a problem if something new happens, or understand how COVID is going to mess up shipping. It's just, I think it's important never to pull back and don't get too comfortable.
I agree. And I want to say, for those of you who are starting a brand, it can seem overwhelming, and you can look at the Serena and Lilies of the world and say, well, how did they get to that? But really, my best advice is just get to the next step. It's great to have goals. It's great to have a vision of where you want to be year 1 and where you'd like to be year 3 versus 5. But then when you really build your business, all you really have to do is say, okay, what's the next step, and get there. I remember, well, it was only 2 years ago. We're a 5-year-old e-commerce brand, but I thought it was big when we had Fig and Dove tape. When we started boxing our, putting Fig and Dove branded tape on our boxes, I was like, this is huge. The girl who was doing our social media did not think it was so huge. I asked her 100 times, can you just please put a picture? I just seeing all those boxes in the hallway with the perfect brown Fig and Dove tape made me so happy. I was like, please just put that on our story or on our, and she was like, it's tape. But that was big, Fig and Dove tape, so sometimes it's the bigger steps, and then sometimes it's the little steps that you're like, oh, we look so official.
And I'd also like to say that getting bigger doesn't necessarily mean that you're making more money or being more profitable. Don't be afraid of not growing as fast as you think you want to go. Give it time, because you can find yourself in a tailspin, and it may look like you're doing gangbusters, but if you haven't had time to really put yourself behind it and educate your people and have the right people come in to grow that business, you might look great, but you're still not making any money. So don't be afraid to keep it slow.
I totally agree with that. There's 2 different ways you can approach starting a new business, and most people can't do the one, which is invest a ton of money into it and just spend it all on marketing. That's what Amazon can do. The other way is slow and steady and focusing on the things you can control, like customer service, the product selection. So yeah.
And that's another thing. Don't be too afraid of Amazon, because Amazon isn't going to have Tracy who's going to answer the phone and hold a relationship with them. They're going to have person number 1, 2, 3, 5 that can't even really give them a name. And sometimes you can't even find a phone number. So don't be afraid to be small.
You can also cross list on Amazon. Just kidding. But you guys are so right. And there are a lot of steps in a skyscraper. And the first steps, you might be able to scale really quickly. You come up with your brand name, you buy the domain, you decide Magento or Wix or Shopify, you list a few products, you get a few customers. And as it gets taller, you get more tired, and the steps are harder to scale, and they're bigger things to think about and larger investments. And as long as you're just focusing on the
next right step for your business. Colleen said this earlier and I thought that it was so profound. Just do the next right thing. And pretty soon, 5 years later, you'll be looking down and saying, look how far we've come.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to every How I Built This by Guy Raz on NPR, I mean, that is the MBA of starting your own business. And it's funny, I mean, we have had some pitfalls. We've had a lot of successes, but we've had things where all of a sudden we're all looking in the office bug-eyed like, oh boy. And it's sort of like, okay, but that happened to a way. Okay, well, I heard about that on such, and you can think about all the podcasts that you listen to and you say, but that's okay because they all are still here today and they were very successful, but that happened to them. And I think the common thread was they just kept going.
Absolutely. So last question, rapid fire. Be memorable. What tips do you have to be memorable with your customers?
Personal touch, I would say, which you already kind of echoed. That personal touch really keeps people coming back, taking the time, if you're on the phone with them, to get to know them. A lot of customers right now are first-time e-commerce shoppers, I found, and it's really interesting talking to them and listening. They have like fears about shopping online, and just reassuring them that, that it's safe and that their credit card's not going to get stolen. It's just interesting. I think that personal touch really will allow customers to remember you and come back because, they know Erin in customer service.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Make it a great experience because, buying something should be fun. I mean, again, as the interior designer, sometimes we have clients that were like, they're sucking the life out of the project. It should be fun, buying things to your house and decorating. And those are the fun things in life. This isn't a doctor's appointment. And so from, picking the item to the customer service questions to how it's packaged and wrapped to putting a thank you note in it, the whole experience should be great for them. And then they love you and then they feel like they know you and then they're telling their friend about you. And that's for us also the rewarding part on our end because there's so much hard work. But when somebody sends you a picture of their boxwood wreath with their wreath sash on it, or they say they're actually doing their daughter's wedding, the doors of the wedding, and they're showing your products in their special occasions and that it's actually touched them and become a part of their family heritage and their family memories, that's rewarding for us. And that makes us keep doing it. Otherwise, we would have given up a long time ago because it's a lot of work.
And I would say, don't follow lead. Don't go out and look at what everybody else is doing and saying, that's what I need to do because that's why they were successful, because they're already ahead of you. Look for what you believe in. Look for the niche that you can do. You may be I may be part Serena and Lily. I may be part One Kings Lane. I may be, but I'm not exactly Serena and Lily, and I'm not exactly One Kings Lane. Make sure you're always diversifying yourself and you're being true to your company and you're not getting bogged down in the following because you're never going to get ahead. Go ahead and jump it and find your own thing.
I love that. And Colleen said earlier in the conversation that she didn't do anything but Christmas for the first 3 years. Was that by design?
So that was definitely by design. And I will say, like you said earlier, you do have to look around at the next steps and be willing to pivot. But at the same time, one of the things I knew the year we started Fig and Dove was that we were going to stay Christmas for at least 3 years. And immediately everybody said, but what other holidays are you doing or what other occasions are you doing? And I said, actually, I feel like we really found a void in the market. And I think we're just going to be Christmas for as long as it takes for people to say, I need high-end Christmas, and for someone to say, go to Fig and Dove. And so we were solid Christmas for 3 years, got all of our press around Christmas. And then we started adding on other special occasions and gifting and even taking the things that we developed as Christmas products, showing people how to use them year round. So take that boxwood wreath back out or take those beautiful acrylic doves out and use them at Easter on your front door. And that's how we moved into other categories.
That's certainly a way to be memorable is to pick what your niche is and just inhabit it and take up all the space that you can.
Because remember, Serena and Lily was baby bedding until 2008, the same year, because I know their story too, but the same year when all those little mom and pop shops closed, Serena and Lily then became a catalog, but they were a baby bedding company and they did it really well.
Whitney, you did the same thing with lighting. You were known for
Contractor lighting store. Then I had a furniture store online, and now we've rebranded again, which, by the way, Meadow Blue and the rebranding is a butterfly. And it's a butterfly known for ever evolving and changing. So that is where Meadow Blue came from, because that is something that I believe in my core, that you are always ever evolving and changing. And if you ever stop, you're not going to be successful.
Well, that was pretty awesome. But I just want to throw out one last opportunity for all these people who are thinking of painting their digital shingle. What's the one piece of advice you want to impart?
Be true to yourself. Trust yourself. Have the right people there to support you, who believe in you as well, and the right people who can help you execute it. You can't do it by yourself, and don't ever think you can. And always listen to the other people and take in their advice.
I would agree with that. You know, find your vision, stick to it, always have that in mind, and know that you can change direction if you need to. But go back to that vision of who you want to be. You can change how you're getting there. You can find someone new to help you. Just don't lose sight of what's core to your values.
I agree. I mean, I feel the same about all of those. And generally, if you do have an idea and you're listening today or here today because you have an idea and you think you found a void in the market, just go for it. I mean, don't spend 3 years researching or whatnot. If you have an idea, go for it. Go for it small. Do not invest so much that you're going to lose sleep at night because you can't get out of it. Find out if you have a real audience and if it's really something that other people want and need. If you wanted and needed it and it wasn't there and you couldn't find it, then there probably are other designers and other people out there that need the same thing. Test the market. And actually, Serena and Lily, I went to a lecture that Serena and Dugan did early, and I was just looking at Serena and Lily, like they just had everything. And you just envision that there was like, you know, there was basically a warehouse with 500 of every single item. And she said, it doesn't matter how big we get, there might be 3 pillows. She's like, we decide that green's the next color, we might test it with 3 green pillows. And manufacturers will actually make a small quantity for you. So if they tell you they'll only make a huge amount, you can find a manufacturer that'll work with you, and probably right in this area. There's so many great manufacturers right here in North Carolina and in the surrounding areas. They'll make small quantities for you. You just have to keep knocking on doors and asking other business owners. Women will help other women out. And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to just open their doors and give you business advice. So never be afraid to ask anybody.
That's fantastic. So as you go ahead and launch whatever it is that you're currently planning for, we'd love if you'd stay in touch. Reach out to me if you ever need another set of eyes. I'm happy to lead the panel. And we hope to see some of you on our next e-commerce panel next year. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.